Hi guys, Josh here. Welcome back to the vlog. First off, I just want to say thank you to everyone who commented on the last video. I really appreciate all the kind words and the birthday wishes there. You guys rock, and make sure you stick around a little bit later. I'm actually going to be answering a few questions that were posted on the last video there. But first, the new Tadpole Rack is here and set up, so I want to show you that. Alright, so this is the new Tadpole Rack behind me right here. This is an aluminum baker's rack or bun rack. I've heard it called by a few different names. Basically, it's designed for like if you're in a bakery and you're producing a ton of buns at a time, you put them on these aluminum pans on this rack to be able to cool a bunch, and it doesn't take up a lot of floor space. And I had actually had an idea for this years ago. The place where I get all my deli cups is like a restaurant supply store, and they had a couple of these on display one day, and I was kind of looking at them and I was like, those would probably make pretty decent tadpole racks, but they're a little bit on the pricey side, and at the time in my old place there I had quite a bit of room, so it wasn't really that urgent that I needed to really be that efficient with my space. And then I just kind of forgot about it for a few years, but being in this new place now where space is a lot more limited, I really have to be more efficient with how I use my space. And I was actually listening to the Amphibicast podcast, the one with I think it's Keith Tanis from Frogs and Things, and he mentioned that he was using a baker's rack for his tadpoles too. So I decided to go for that again. Looked into it. It was really tough to find around Calgary, especially for any kind of reasonable price. But I ended up finding one for sale out in Ontario on a website called Nella Online. And even with the shipping to get it here, it ended up being cheaper than any of the ones I could find in Calgary. So I got that, got it all set up, really easy to set up. I got a few pans for it. I need a few more. I'm still kind of playing around with exactly how I want to organize it, but I've only got 5 trays in there right now. I'm going to need to get a few more, but I definitely won't be using all of them. I can fit 32 of these cups per tray, and there's 20 shelves on here that I could use, and these cups are just short enough that I could use every one of them. So I think that gives me like 640 cups I could potentially put in here, which is way more than I'm gonna need in the foreseeable future for tadpoles. But I figure using about half of it for tadpoles, and then I can even put some more trays down below for like fly cultures, or just have a tray of like springtail cultures or whatever. So I should be able to make this kind of a multi-purpose rack. And I've been using it for almost 2 weeks now, I think. Really liking it so far. I've got them spaced out enough right now that I can get in there and feed and top up water on all the cups without even taking the trays out. But it's also fairly easy to pull the trays out onto my workbench if I need to like shuffle cups around, or if I'm moving tadpoles from these cups into the morph out cups. And these tubs here also perfectly fit within these rails here, so I've been using those. My little like egg incubator tub is in one of these, and right now I've got this one with my morphing cups for all the froglets that are about to morph out up in here. So really happy with this rack so far. It's kind of helped me clean up and organize this little corner here, and it leaves me tons of room to expand if I'm going to have more tadpoles in the future. And I mentioned these bins fit perfectly in these rails here, so right now I've got my little incubator bin on here, and you can see it's actually empty here. I just cleaned out all of the egg cups and transferred tadpoles into cups and everything. So one thing I want to do today is talk a little bit about the incubator bin itself, and then I'm going to go through all the dart frog tanks and collect any eggs and tadpoles that I can find. So this is what I call my dart frog incubator. It's not heated or anything. Dart frog eggs will develop fine at room temperature, but they do need high humidity. So I've basically got this thing set up. It's essentially a giant springtail culture. The bottom here is just like charcoal and hydro balls. I don't know if you'll be able to see any, but there is springtails crawling around in here too, and they've just kind of got a self-sustaining population. And I find they actually help kind of like clean up the fungus and stuff that gets onto the eggs sometimes. And then I've just got a piece of egg crate on top to provide a flat surface to put the egg cups on themselves, and then just a little hygrometer sitting in here to make sure the humidity is good. And yeah, you'll see this thing isn't empty very often, but I just cleaned all of the tadpoles and egg cups out of here. So it's time to go through all of my tanks and collect any tadpoles or eggs that I can find. So I will check this tank first, just because it's easy to get to here. This is one of my Azurius vivariums. You can actually see, I believe that's the female right there, hanging out next to the coconut hut. So we'll see if she's got any eggs in here. And one other thing I wanted to quickly mention here, you'll see I use these white little trays here for the egg laying sites. A lot of people use petri dishes, which do work fine too, but the reason I like these white ones is that it makes it a lot easier to see the eggs from outside of the tank. So I actually have like just a small LED flashlight that I use quite a bit, and I can just kind of go around. It's going to be a little bit hard to show on camera here, but I can just go around, quickly shine my light in through the front of the coconut here, and it makes it really easy to see. You can kind of see a tadpole there, but it makes it really easy to see at a glance if there are any eggs inside of the cups here. With the petri dishes, because they're clear and you can just kind of see the substrate through them, it makes it a lot harder to see the dark eggs in here. So that's basically the reason I use these white cups, because it means I can just quickly go around with my flashlight here and check all the eggs without actually having to dig through the vivarium. But once I've identified that there are some eggs in there, I'll just lift up the cup here, or lift up the coconut hut, and pull the eggs out. So it looks like we've got a couple clutches here. There's a newer one with some new eggs here, but then we've also got a few tadpoles that are basically ready to hatch. So I will just replace that with a fresh cup underneath the coconut hut there, and then I will bring this cup over here. I will give it a quick label to keep track of which tank it came from. I have 2 pairs of Azurius, so these are the second pair, and I will just stick that on there so I know where this clutch came from. In this case, because those tadpoles are about to hatch, I will, or they're kind of already hatched, I will put a little bit of water in there so they can swim around. Ideally, I would like to change these cups out before they get a chance to lay a second clutch in there, because I find that if there's 2 clutches in one, the second one really never does as well for whatever reason. But I've been a little bit behind on collecting all my eggs, so it is what it is. Hopefully most of these other ones still hatch, but it looks like we've got 3 nice Azurius tadpoles in there that I should be able to transfer into cups in a couple days. And then I will just set them on there, and that's basically it. Alright, I've got a few of the egg cups pulled out here, so basically I will just lay them out in this incubator like this. Sometimes I have enough where they're even kind of stacked on top of each other, but then basically I just throw the lid on, throw them back out of the way here, and check on them every few days. I will add a little bit more water to them sometimes if they're looking a little dry, or remove any that have gone bad or molded over. And I was hoping for a few more eggs than that, but as I said, I've been a little bit behind on collecting them, and a few of the cups were actually empty because the frogs have been doing the work for me. So as you can see, in some of these tanks I have just short deli cups here full of water, and in a bunch of them the frogs have actually moved. Get that root out of there. But as you can see here, there's actually tadpoles in here. So yeah, because I've been behind, the frogs themselves have moved some of the tadpoles from these cups into these water dishes. So these ones are going to get transferred directly into the cups on the rack over there. Alright, so almost done here. Last ones to go through are my thumbnail tanks behind me here. And I did want to talk about these ones because I do them a little bit differently. So with the Dendrobates frogs, I will typically collect the egg cups and put them into the incubator for hatching. I seem to get better success that way. But with the Ranidomea frogs, I will purposely leave the eggs in there and let the parents transport them. And I don't know what it is exactly, but whenever I try to take the Ranidomea eggs out and hatch them separately, I get really bad results. A lot of eggs go bad, and even those eggs that do hatch, a lot of times the tadpoles don't survive very long for whatever reason. But with the Ranidomea frogs, I will specifically leave the eggs in there and let the males transport those tadpoles to water themselves. And I just find that I get way better success in terms of tadpole survival rates when I do it that way. I'm not really sure why, but yeah, whenever I try to hatch them myself, very poor hatch rates, very poor tadpole survival rates. But when I leave the eggs in and let the males do it, and I will usually leave the tadpoles in their cups for a few days at least, if not a couple weeks, to kind of let them get established. And for whatever reason, I have way more success doing it that way. I do still like to pull the tadpoles out and raise them myself, because I find once I start feeding them myself, I get way better growth rates than if I leave them for the parents to raise the whole time. But yeah, that initial transport to water after hatching, for whatever reason, way better success if I let the parents do it. At least with the Ranidomea, that isn't my experience with the Dendrobates. I have no problem hatching those eggs successfully, but with the Ranidomea, I always let the parents do it now. But this video is probably long enough now, so I'm going to wrap it up here in a second. But first, I wanted to do one more thing. I thought it'd be kind of a cool segment for these vlogs if I go through and maybe answer some questions left in the comments section of the previous vlog. I am still going to go through and answer the questions directly. But I know not everybody reads the comments, and you guys do ask some really good questions sometimes that I think would be helpful for everybody. So first question was from user Scary Fear, who was asking about the tadpole cups that I use. So they are just, they're the mason jar brand, these Bernardine mason jars, and they are the 250 milliliter, I believe they're called jam jars, if I remember right. And I used to use the like plastic deli cups for tadpoles too, but just in an effort to not use as much plastic, I switched to all glass cups, so they're more reusable. I was reusing the plastic ones a few times too, but they don't handle being in the dishwasher very well, so you'd almost have to like hand wash them, and it was just really time consuming, and it was just too much plastic. I already go through enough plastic with just like the fly cultures and stuff too, so yeah, just basically switched to all glass tadpole cups, just to cut down on plastic waste basically. I've been using these ones for a few years now, and they're working really well. I don't think I'd go too much smaller than this, just because it becomes way too hard to keep the water quality high enough. You do have to change the water a little bit more in a smaller cup like this, but I find it's worth it. It takes a little more time, but you can also fit more in a smaller space, so it's kind of a trade-off there, but yeah, using these for years now, probably going to continue to use them. Work really well for me. And the second question I wanted to talk about was from JV1997, and he's asking about mites in fruit fly cultures, and this was kind of a two-part question. First part was if you see mites in your cultures, can you still feed those flies to the dart frogs? He's a little bit worried about them getting into the tank and infesting the vivarium. And in my experience, it's not really a problem. If you do have mites in your fly cultures, you can still keep feeding them. The frogs will actually eat the mites too, so I've never really had a problem with mites getting too infested in vivariums or anything like that. So yeah, don't worry about like throwing your cultures out. I wouldn't use those cultures to start new cultures, because then you're just transferring the mites over. But as far as feeding them to the frogs, you'll be fine. And the second part of the question, which has actually been asked by a few people now at this point, is how to prevent mites in fly cultures. And the way I do it is with diatomaceous earth. So I'll have these tubs here with a layer of diatomaceous earth in the bottom, and then my fly cultures just sit right on there. And basically the diatomaceous earth just kills the mites, so they can't crawl through it. The other thing with that you have to make sure is to not let the tops of the cultures touch, just in case mites do get into one culture. They're not going to be able to crawl from top to top into the other cultures. They're going to have to go through the dust in the bottom, or the diatomaceous earth, which they can't do. So they're not going to transfer from culture to culture. But that's going to do it for this vlog. Thanks a bunch for watching, guys. Sorry this one took a little longer to get out. Hopefully the next one will be coming out sooner. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more. Questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos, leave them down in the comments there. Have a great day, and until next time, happy frogging.